Welcome these fine-looking gents to talk with me about all of the trends in blockchain and how they'll really be impacting the iGaming world. Gentlemen, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks. Why don't you give a quick introduction of yourself and your organization to our audience?
Okay, I'm Benham. We are based in the Isle of Man. We have a legal practice and a corporate service provider and also a gaming advisory business. So we assist gaming companies getting license approvals and running their businesses.
Great.
My name is Lyle Wraxall. I'm CEO of Digital Isle of Man, which is a public-private partnership to support the digital economy on the island. So that's both iGaming and blockchain, as well as other technologies as well.
Great.
Thank you. My name is Harmen, Brenninkmeijer. What I like to do is generally look for companies that have great potential and that somehow I can get involved with. I have taken over Quanta. Quanta basically started the development on the blockchain within the Ethereum space, and we have great expectations of what we can do with it, and we still have some runway left with proving our case.
Yeah, great.
We're licensed in the Isle of Man. So.
Okay, fantastic. Isle of Man. You got it going. All right. So we've been hearing about this future of blockchain for a while, right? Not just in iGaming, but other industries. But if we're really honest, the true power of blockchain technology really has not been leveraged, unleashed to its great potential. What do you think are the best use cases for blockchain in iGaming that are out there and that need to really be implemented?
Well, in iGaming, blockchain's got the potential to provide all the games that already exist off the blockchain. Yeah. So if you look at any gaming, you've got casino games, you've got sportsbook, and various variants between it. And there's no reason blockchain can't provide all of those games. And what we're seeing now is, we're actually seeing in the Isle of Man is firms are coming in and using the games that people are familiar with, casino games, slot machines, and even sportsbook, and putting those onto the blockchain and using the blockchain technology to provide a better, more secure product. Yeah.
Okay.
So I think we've seen a lot of blockchain companies come to the island in the past year or so. They're doing some incredible, innovative things, all very different. A good majority of those are in the iGaming space. I think, as you mentioned in your previous channel, there's a whole lot of innovation that is required to go around reducing friction. That's probably the biggest challenge you have. But the innovation that's out there and some of the use cases, which unfortunately are ones that haven't been licensed yet, so I can't talk about, are genuinely exciting. I think we have licensed blockchain casinos that look at provable fair play, which is a interesting way to look at blockchain, but there's a whole education piece that needs to go along with that as well. So it's great to see these companies prepared to take on that challenge and that journey of educating their users of what blockchain is doing for them, whilst reducing the friction to use and introduce them to systems.
Okay.
It's funny, right? I've taken over Quanta, and basically I should be totally excited about, let's say, we're going to change the world. I want to be a little bit more realistic. I've been 30 years in gaming, and I just know how damn slow this world works.
Sure.
And I absolutely am not the firm believer that suddenly I'm going to set the world on fire tomorrow. What I do believe is that the blockchain gives me the ability, and especially with the products that we're developing, it gives us the ability to be far more transparent. Now, I don't want to talk about transparency like provably fair. Provably fair is a nice concept, etc. Most gamblers don't really give a damn about it. That's the truth. Yeah. So, it's nice, it's good that we can have it, etc.
It's a nice sales point.
I can sell you an RNG right now on the blockchain and say, I got the greatest product. I just don't want to go there. What I do want to do is, and this is, I like to, basically do what I say I will do. We went into Nigeria, and I'm saying to the Nigerian government, I can build you a lottery that you have full insight in. I can prove to you how much I should be paying you. I can prove to you what I should be paying and what the players should be getting. And I can prove to the players how much better their game can be and how much more trusted we can be, because we all know that nobody trusts anybody in Nigeria. So, that's the starting block I want to start with, in order then to say, now how can I expand it? Because once I prove that case, and I prove it from, several countries, etc. onwards, then I can prove it to the rest of the world. And I can guarantee you that I can come up with cases in established lotteries, including for the Camelot lottery, for example, in the UK, etc. I can come up with some very, very nifty concepts that I believe will be very attractive to everyone. But if I sell it to them today, no chance.
So peer-to-peer applications, or what people try to call decentralized applications, are a big topic of discussion in the blockchain world, including in the betting areas. Do you think we've actually really seen a true decentralized betting application? Because in my view, if there's a company behind it, it's not really decentralized, right? You can call it, right? It's sort of an oxymoron. Do you think that's ever really possible in iGaming?
Well, if I just cover that, one thing you got to understand in iGaming is most of it's regulated. So there's going to be a regulator there.
Sure.
So if you have it completely decentralized, where it's just basically it's just working by itself, on the blockchain, then there's a difficulty there that you'll create something which isn't able to be subject to regulation, and that will be open to fraud, money laundering, etc. So gaming, since there's such volumes of money being transferred, to create a regulated model, you can have it almost completely decentralized, and that is taking place. There are out there already very big gaming companies providing gaming packages which are some are completely run on the blockchain and some are hybrid. So they're using the blockchain partly and then going off block to make the programs run a little bit faster. So there's a complete spectrum of them, and they're probably not as visible as they could be. Some are quite small startups, but there are some very big ones out there that are being used.
So I think this is a huge challenge, right? So I've been doing business transformation and working with businesses, startups and stuff for 20 years. And if there's anybody who's going to crack this, it's probably not going to be somebody from my generation. It's really difficult, and it still blows my mind to try to think about how to run a business in a decentralized fashion. We're so used to thinking about centralized applications, centralized processes, that it absolutely blows my mind to think, how you're going to do something different. I think we will see some shift, but it's going to be an evolution until somebody comes up with something that's really kind of shifts the ground.
I actually think it's very easy. The Bitcoin has led it, because they basically have said it's completely decentralized. Nobody sits on top of it to basically say this is the way it goes. Clearly there are some guidelines, but there is nobody that's really running it. So it's running on its own. The problem with that is that the people that really understand, let's say, everything, the ins and outs of the Bitcoin, like yourselves, where, the sticky points are and where, let's say, certain things are going. But for the average public that participates in it and that still looks at, this is a great, potential proposition, and that's why a lot of people have been investing, or basically are looking at it, and that's why, right now it becomes all syndicated, because it seems like those are the guys that are on the inside that really know, where the value is going to go. So, in other words, it started out as something relatively decentralized, in my point of view. Gaming could easily come up with a solution that's completely decentralized. The problem with that is that, who's going to abuse it, and as a result, where is it going to end up with? So that's where I see the problems. I don't necessarily see the problems from a technological part. I see the problems from an absolute, commercialization and modeling part as to, how it should work.
Well, I would call them quasi-decentralized, or decentralized-ish is really a better way of describing it. Let's talk tokens. What are good trends you're seeing with tokens in iGaming, and bad trends?
Well, people are using tokens. Some of them are using, so if people want to use fiat on a gaming application, the casino site itself will have created its own token, and the fiat will come in, be converted to the casino's token, and then used for gambling, and then converted back. So you've got fiat to token, token back to fiat. So people, I think that the idea then is that they hope that the tokens they can either have on exchanges and see if there's a potential increase in value. I'm not convinced on that part, because it's always going to have the value of whatever it's worth on the game. But no, there's definitely coming through different uses of tokens, and I'll touch on another one further down on one of the points we may touch later. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we see echoing a little bit what was on the previous panel with some of the tokens. They're difficult to use. There's too many of them out there.
Yeah, too many.
And for again a new user, the barrier for entry is quite high. There's not a single wallet that deals with all of these tokens.
Right.
It's too easy to lose them, and that just puts people off. But on the plus side, the value you can wrap around tokens can be really interesting. So to do your KYC up front and allow access to a system of different products is a huge area of value. And again, something that whilst you still have that initial pain point, it's going to reduce the number of times you have to go through that barrier.
I'd like to, again, I like to really see it differently. Tokenization to me is the future. There's no doubt about it. I mean, I would like to see every company not have shares, but tokens. I believe that the shareholdings, etc., are old. The fact that we have to go to an exchange. If I go on the stock market, for example, I told my broker I wanted to buy Alibaba in Hong Kong, okay? My broker in the United States says, impossible, can't do it. What is this? I mean, seriously. Yeah. So Alibaba goes up, and at the same token, I don't have access to that, share. Because I can't buy it via my broker. I would have to go via another broker based in Hong Kong in order to make that possible, etc. I believe tokenization as a whole has a massive future with regards to building companies. So I'd like to think of it very differently than saying that's a technological part, right? That's a blockchain part. It has nothing to do with gaming, nothing to do with, let's say, the crypto world. Tokenization itself, to me, has fantastic opportunities. We could tokenize land, and basically...
Right.
All of it.
A token is just is by definition is a representation of something else.
That's it.
Right.
Exactly.
Whether it's digital, paper,
it's a
or
piece
whatever.
of asset or whatever you call it. Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But that's why tokenizing interest in a company is essentially just like having stock.
Absolutely.
It's just represented differently, digitally, as opposed to a piece of paper.
And make it
stock
easier to
certificate.
exchange, etc. I think that's where we should be looking at, and therefore, the way I'm looking at the tokenization for Quanta, and we're going to come out with a program that I'm going to be introducing at the iShow, is where I think that with our tokenization, we're going to, run into, let's say, some additional features. So, for example, on the charity side, most of the lotteries are very interested in charity. Let me tokenize charity. So I'm going to talk about that a lot more in the future.
Yeah. No, and we're big advocates of only tokenizing real-world assets, not just creating a Jimmy coin because I want my own coin,
That's the problem. Look at the OneCoin scandal that we have right now on the BBC, etc. I mean, fantastic expose. If you ever want to read a great story, read about OneCoin. I mean, that's exactly what you don't want to do.
What, tokenize real-world assets? Well, but that's what a token is. It's a representation of something. So you have to
Yes,
tokenize
but that was
something.
a representation of nothing. That's my point.
I know,
the fact that they got away with it.
Well, yeah, but people can always abuse any system. But if you tokenize an asset, whether it be shares in a company, land, whether it be rewards, points, and systems.
Well,
and
no,
games,
if you tokenize the land, then at least it's only once, right? That piece of land, etc. Nowadays
maybe until it gets parceled up.
All right, provability.
It's provability.
If you can have your token, as long as you can use technology to prove that that token really does represent either the land, a gaming token, or a work of art, let's say, as long as you can prove that, and that's then people have the trust, and you know that you can use that token and exchange it for the actual underlying good.
I love the trace capabilities, right? In other words, we can trace any type of product, right?
Yes.
You can make sure that, for example, the let's say the coffee beans coming out of a particular country, are, let's say, up to that standard and up to that, et cetera, throughout the chain. And then when it gets sold and resold, et cetera, that's a fantastic, capabilities.
So for blockchain technology to be used at the scale necessary to support the global iGaming industry, it needs to overcome some, technical challenges still. Scalability is a big one that has been discussed in the blockchain world for years because of Bitcoin's challenges with scaling. Talk to us about what you're seeing in terms of scalability challenges and how they're being solved or not in various ecosystems.
Okay. One of the issues on iGaming, if you have a successful iGaming business, is literally going to be the volume of transactions.
Yes.
So if you deal with a company involved in sports betting, they would have thousands and thousands of transactions per second going through. So I think one of the difficulties for the blockchain is without a blockchain that can actually scale to that speed, to that, and take on a real business, that's a difficulty. So the ones with the initial companies coming in, they probably had aspirations to get to thousands of transactions per second, but if they were doing a couple of transactions per day, they're probably doing quite well because they were small startups. But for blockchain to roll out, they definitely need something which is scalable, which is secure, and it's almost like the next generation that is needed because the idea is at the beginning, but now it's got to move into the big boy league and provide that solution.
Yeah. I think we see businesses, they're aware of the challenge, obviously, so they're starting their roadmap. They don't necessarily they know these problems are on their roadmap. They don't necessarily know always how to solve them. We're seeing some more stuff going off chain and proprietary software being built between the game and the blockchain to kind of speed some of this up and make the user experience less clunky. But then you're creating a bit more of a hybrid solution. How does that impact the trust? How's that, is that really something that's going to be accepted? Obviously, these businesses are trying to start their journey. They're trying to get their customers in. I think that we have a growing problem of some of the platforms that people are using that perhaps aren't working as hard as some others to actually scale and to speed up. And I think we have a growing problem in front of us, which I think we're going to have to kind of figure out how we're going to kind of move around that, or we'll just see a new era of applications come into being. But it's going to be interesting.
I think we focused too much, Quanta focused a lot on, let's say, its speed, because we have a lot of Japanese investors. And the Japanese investors are very, very interested in, let's say, indeed getting the number of transactions up per second. Yeah. So, and we're now up at between 1,000 to 1,500 transactions per second. And we're going to guarantee the 1,500 within a certain period. But at the same token, I kept on looking at the product and I'm saying like, okay, I know that's important, but if I really have that many customers right now, then I'd be very happy. And yes, I would want to solve that problem, but I don't have that number of customers yet. So let me solve the UI problem, the UX problem first, which is really what was not getting the attention, and that's what we're changing. So I think for a lot of applications, as you said, is that we need to first create a nice experience, etc. But we should not forget that by the time, because everything trends, and then suddenly when it speeds up and then you fall over, then you get a problem. So we things have to go somewhat in sync, but it's very, very difficult to predict as to how exactly the pattern is going to move. Yeah,
but there are practical issues if you're a developer and operator trying to figure out where to build your game, your platform. You have to make a choice. EarnBet, which used to be called EOSBet, just published a very interesting blog post just 2 days ago. So it advertises itself as a decentralized casino and sports betting service. It had originally started building its platform on Ethereum. Ethereum ran into scaling capacity issues, as I mentioned in my speech. So it moved over to EOS, which advertised itself as, blockchain for commercial usage. 2 days ago, the company published a blog post saying we're giving 30-day notice to EOS. They were basically quitting the EOS platform because of congestion on that network, because of some other uses that are happening that became popular. And if just one use, like on Ethereum CryptoKitties, can congest a network, what happened is that it went from being cheap to send transactions or to power things on EOS to you as the user for them having to stake, risk essentially $100 worth of EOS coins just to do a transaction. And they were finding that they could only do 3 to 4 bets a second on the platform, where they need to be at least 10 to make it even viable. So they're going to quit the EOS platform unless something gets fixed. And the problem they raise is that they had been loyal EOS developers since its beginning, and they've wasted potentially almost 2 years now of time building a product, getting players, and now have to confront the question of maybe having to change platforms again for a third time, and that's a real problem. That's what we're trying to solve on BSV by providing a massively scaled system so people can build whatever they want.
Well, that's what we're doing. We're segregating, let's say, the user case versus, let's say, the technology itself. And if Ethereum is not going to deliver what we expect that it will deliver, or so far that, we have experienced, etc., then, we can let it go. Yeah. But I think that's absolutely essential to look at.
Yeah. So let's, in our remaining time, talk about smart contracts. We hear about this all the time. Ooh, blockchain can power smart contracts. Do you see trends about how smart contracts are actually being used well in iGaming, or how can they be used well and how are they not being used?
No, I mean, smart contracts basically are going to transform gaming. They are currently being used as a method of payment. So, for instance, what one risk a player may have is they may gamble and then they'll be thinking, well, when am I going to get the money back? I'd like to have that cash I've won now. So with the advantage of smart contracts, once you're using the blockchain and people have had their identity verified, etc., then there's no reason why the smart contract can't immediately, as soon as you win, transfer the coins to you instantly.
Automates the process.
So that's a massive advantage.
Yeah, I think this term smart contract gets people quite excited, and it is essentially an automation tool.
Yep.
It's essentially your basic Boolean kind of expressions that you can execute. We are seeing it, as you say, with payments, and it's speeding up payments, which is great, for affiliates and so forth to get them, accurate and timely payments. It changes the game. It's changing the model in some cases, which is challenging to the folk that are going down that road. But we're seeing it outside of iGaming as well with DRM systems and so forth. So some interesting opportunities there. I think it's going to be interesting to see how they're really leveraged and how the process kind of works around that too.
Well, for us, it's essential, right? Because if you have a lottery and you give prizes away, then what you want to do is when you have a $10,000 prize, it goes into a smart contract, and as a result, you have a provable contract that basically says that's how you won the money. So you have done your AML, KYC, and everything is right there. So, you don't have any further questions, and you have instant payout, which, right now you don't even have with an average lottery, on the street. So for us, the smart contracts are everything. So, absolutely essential. And I think, and I just want to hammer this point, I think the one thing that we need to get through to the regulators, et cetera, is how much more control a regulator actually can get. Yeah. But what we need to do with the regulators is basically show them this is how the process works. This is let's say that nobody can interrupt the process, and as a result, you guys should be the one forcing the whole industry to basically say this is the direction you have to take.
Yeah. In fact, I think iGaming is the perfect industry for use cases smart contracts. So smart contracts, as you mentioned, are ideal for situations where you have an if-then condition that's met. If you win this bet, then Y happens. That's very clear. That's black and white. They're not good for gray area, contracts.
Especially with bigger prices.
Yeah. Final topic area in our remaining minutes is this new trend I'm seeing about what we call non-fungible tokens and assets in iGaming, things that are unique to a player. For example, in-game skins, collectibles, virtual cards, kind of like the CryptoKitties type collectibles, things you can uniquely own yourself. Are you seeing a trend in both regular online gaming and the online gambling world about creating marketplaces for things like this, as well as maybe even wagering involving them?
Yeah, what I've seen is it was actually an Isle of Man one, which has just been licensed, a sports book, and within their white paper, what they're saying is that you can basically, after you've placed your bet, so say you place a bet and it had maybe a couple of bets, and you think, this bet's great, and the odds have moved. So really you've got something of value now. The odds have moved, or you can see that you're really going to win. That bet has got a value. So if you can represent that by a token, then you can sell that. So suddenly you can have a trading
uniquely
platform.
identifiable to that bet.
Yeah, all very quick because the game will be over quite soon. So if you want to say, look, I've got this, who wants to buy it? On the platform, sell them, and people are suddenly buying and selling people's bets.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're seeing some folk using it as a means to gamification of what they're trying to do, a different kind of reward. Certainly, of some of the people that we've been working with, there are plans for how can they leverage those assets in a different way. But equally, we're seeing a number of exchange time companies looking to see how they can kind of create marketplaces for these outside of that ecosystem as well. It's going to be interesting to see which one prevails and how that comes to be. But again, I think certainly on the Isle of Man, we kind of had to deal with this when we had skins betting and so forth, like a few years back, and we had to kind of understand how we were going to deal with that. Fortunately, we've got a regulator who is incredibly pragmatic, and they understand this kind of technology. So it does become like a great place to go and have difficult conversations and work through to a pragmatic solution about how to be regulated, how to leverage smart contracts, and the value that offers back to the regulators. I
think there is a huge opportunity for game developers to basically look at. We all know that when you, for example, play the pub games, the AWPs. And you play an AWP, and for example, you have to, get to a certain level. And because of the fact that it's a controlled logic, and generally what happens is you have, let's say you get level number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. And then, you have to stay with the machine, because if you go off the machine, then suddenly you lose the level that you already had gained, right? So you're up to level 7, etc., and then suddenly you lose it all. if we could then, through, let's say, fungible, tokenization, et cetera, and different technologies, create the games where that actually stays, and that stays to you, the player, and that as a result, when you disconnect, you still have that, and then you can come back to the game and you can, continue playing into that cycle, and then, gain additional, let's say, an upside, let's say, to what you already spent. I think that's extremely valuable. So I think we haven't seen nothing yet with where that could go.
Yeah, so that's the lesson as we close this panel. I think blockchain technology in iGaming is at its infant stage.
Yeah.
There's a lot more potential to be had, a lot of course correction to be done as well. So let's thank our panelists for joining me on this interesting conversation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.